You're listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and have your work build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Inside You podcast. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Joining us today are Rick and Nancy Monsipapa, authors of Nail the Sale. Rick and Nancy have a combined 40-plus years of selling experience. Rick has been a lifelong entrepreneur since the age of 11. He has started and operated several different businesses, with his chain of coffee houses being his claim to fame. After graduating from Miami University of Ohio, Nancy had several roles in sales, retail, not-for-profit, restaurants, and owning and operating a concrete company. Today, Rick and Nancy co-host the Nail the Sale podcast. Welcome, Rick and Nancy. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Excited to be here tonight.
Thank you. We're excited to have you. So, obviously, the two of you know sales, but what motivated you to write a book?
Well, it's kind of funny. We were at a motivational event, and I got the idea that we should start a podcast called Nail the Sale. And after, I don't know, what do you think, honey? We had probably recorded maybe 10 episodes, and Rick said, man, this would be a great book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we had the content. We already had the content with what we were building with the podcast, so we said, volume 1 is going to come out of us. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I like Nail the Sale, too. That's a catchy tagline.
Thank you.
So you took the material that you had from your podcast. Did you just have them transcribed and then work off of that as the beginning of the book?
Not really, not at all. It was more, Rick kind of sat down and what are the main struggles that entrepreneurs have when it comes to selling? What do we get asked the most? The typical stuff. How do you handle objections? Do I really need a sales process? The basics of selling. And we kind of took those questions and he made an outline for each chapter. And then we just filled in with our years of content. It was just kind of poured out of both of us, really.
How cool. That's a great idea.
So was it an easy process?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's I've kind of made a little formula on how to write a book. I wrote a book earlier last year. I'm also in the real estate business, and I wrote a book called 9.5 Ways to Sell a House in 30 Days.
Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah, and what that was really kind of just lay down a template on how to really put a book together. It's pretty simple. I just sat down and put together 10 or 12 chapters that I think are going to be relevant to the audience that we're writing it for. And, with Nail the Sale, it's sales training for entrepreneurs. That's where our heart is to serve the entrepreneurial community. And then we said, okay, like Nancy said, what are the core things that we need to do? And it was kind of like a sales process, if you will. It's a 30-second commercial. How do you construct it? Sales process, closing, overcoming objections, and all those core things. And once you have the chapters down, I kind of rough out the content with the big stuff, and then Nancy makes it really nice and pretty with the stories and makes it fun to read.
Oh, great. That's nice.
So is it you sort of do, let's say, an outline? You first make the chapter titles, then you do an outline, and then you kind of fill in the outline with sentences, I guess?
No, it's I'm a little more free-flowing than that. If I have a couple key concepts, and what I kind of do is when I sit down to write a chapter, I'll kind of Google a couple key words for images of what the chapter is going to be, and I'll start looking through some of the images for some some inspiration or some additional ideas, and I just kind of write down maybe a couple dozen ideas or things that I can put into it, and then I'll just kind of have an idea of what I want to say, but I don't really outline it and then fill it in sentences around it. I just kind of let it go. I just kind of let it fly, and it's fun. I mean, I've always wanted to be a writer, and it's really funny. Growing up, I was very, very, very challenged in English. Every semester in college, I took an English elective to help me get better at writing.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, so it paid off.
Yeah, it
so
paid off.
that's a neat idea, using visuals to be inspired by writing.
I'm working on another ebook right now and did the same kind of thing. And that template that we started with is kind of helping it out a little bit.
Yep.
And then Nancy, you fill in the holes then.
I go through in my memory the funny stories that someone's going to relate to, so that they can enjoy the book and apply a nugget in their life right away.
Sure. And that's a good way to learn. You know, songs, they always say the lyrics of songs, people can remember those very easily. But then when you give them facts, they can't remember.
Right.
as much.
So a story helps remember
Yes,
the concept.
What did you do for editing? Did you edit for each other, or did you have a professional edit it?
I went through and edited the book. Couple hours a chapter is probably what it took me, and then we actually sent it off to a professional editor to make some final tweaks. It was a little grueling. It wasn't painful, I guess. You know, neither of us are really detail oriented folks. We're more, visionaries and big picture and let's go get it done kind of thing. But it was, I wanted it to be read easily. You wanted it to be a book that somebody could sit down and just read in a couple of hours.
And get motivated and excited and like, okay, I
Exactly.
can do this. Yeah. How did you choose the editor?
The editor that we used is somebody that was referred to me when I wrote my first one.
Oh, okay.
She had an extensive real estate background, and she was referred to me by my graphic guy, who says, I think I have an editor that could really help you out with this. And I really liked her. She just, she's very thorough. She's very detail oriented, which I'm not. And she's a little bit more expensive than if you went to like Fiverr or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I just liked working with her because she was very, very coaching, with that first book. And she says, you write like you talk, and that can be a challenge to really edit. And, I'm never going to profess to be a literary scholar or, win the Nobel Peace Prize in, publishing. But we liked her so much, we used her for the second book, and then we used the same graphics person as well.
Great. And then the graphics person came up with the idea for the cover?
Exactly. We kind of give him an idea of what we're thinking about, then we let him, he's a funny guy. He goes, I feel like I've been called from God to do book covers.
Uh-huh.
And he's done like 500 book covers, I guess.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
And he does a really good job, and but he's an artist.
Yeah.
And, he does the graphics, the design layout, the layout for the Kindle, and he uploads it. He does all the work on the Amazon side to get it into Kindle, the Kindle formatting.
Yeah, sounds like a great resource. Woo.
He was.
And how did you find him?
Actually, he got referred to me when I found a local printer, and I was calling around looking for print-on-demand places, and I wanted a place local, and apparently Tampa has several of them, and I just did some searching. I found one, and I called her, and I said, this is what I'm doing, and I go, do you have anybody you could refer to me that I need a cover done? She goes, oh, I have the right guy, and she gave me she gave me his name.
That is great because, just uploading everything and not having to worry about, the size of the font and the number of pages and everything. Yeah, that is great.
He did all that stuff.
And they were both so gentle with us, it was more of a fun, creative process than it was a, grueling, pull my teeth out, oh, you did this wrong, oh, you did that wrong. They were just fantastic to work with.
That's nice. Yeah.
So did you have a timeline when you set out to write the book?
We tried to get it done in 90 days.
That's great.
And I think we did better than that. I think we started talking about it in August, and it was done in November.
Wow! Congratulations!
Wow!
Thanks.
And that's just that's September 2017 and November 2017. That is great.
If you have the right idea for entrepreneurs that are thinking about writing a book, and everybody has a book inside them, you can do it in 6 weeks. You really can.
But that is 6 weeks is fast.
I just did an ebook, 8 chapters, about 7,500 words, and I knocked it out in about 3 weeks, actually.
Wow, that is impressive.
It's just committing yourself to 2 to 3 hours a day of of this is what I'm going to do with my time during this time, and that you turn off all the distractions and you just grind and get it done.
Right.
When you're writing, that inspiration becomes fulfillment, and when that fulfillment starts to happen, that's when the creativity really breaks out. Creativity, if you keep it locked up, you won't have any.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's true.
So It sounds like you guys have had a very positive experience. I can hear in both your voices the positive. You enjoyed this. It was enthusiastic, is what I guess the word I'm looking for. You both sound very enthusiastic about this process, which is very nice to hear. What about a publisher? Did you go publishing route or did you self-publish?
No, we self-published everything. With the outlets, social media, and all the other things, the days of a publisher are slimmer and slimmer, I think. If somebody has a book, go out and self-publish, and if you have a hit, it will go viral.
Mm-hmm. Right. We still interview some authors who are interested in having someone publish the book and go out and push it for them, but it still seems like a lot of work, even with a publisher.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that frustration comes, and I think people take years and years and years to get their work out there. And we've always said that we've wanted to write and do a book, and it's taken years for us to finally get it. But once we got it going, we did 2 in our first year, and we'll probably do a couple this year. And Nancy has a couple in her noggin that she wants to get out too.
Great.
And then what about marketing your books?
We actually had a gentleman that came alongside us, and he had done marketing, mostly social media marketing, for some other folks, and truly helped them significantly. And I feel like it's just been it's an amazing partnership, and he's constantly asking for our feedback, and are you guys good with this? And here's what I'm thinking about, and here's your social media calendar for the entire year. I mean,
wow.
It's been a huge blessing, when you're pretty time starved, to have somebody like that in your life is just amazing.
Right. So that person does the posts for you, or they just set up the calendar and say every Thursday post here and.
Nope.
No, he does it.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah, we hired a publicist for so many hours a month.
Okay.
And we give them certain criteria that we want to really target and hit. And so it's a little bit different than the first book. I really didn't have a marketing plan. It was more to be to elevate myself in a very crowded space, and that's in the real estate market. Mm-hmm. And if you take a look in Greater Tampa, you get 10,000 agents. How many have written a book, right? Wow. And a book is nothing more than an expanded business card, the way that I look at it. Mm-hmm. And for the cost that you have in it, it's a lot less costly than having those really nice, pretty brochures and folders and things that you hand out. But you hand somebody a book, all of a sudden you are definitely elevated in their eyes. It just you are given more credibility as an author.
Right. And so then, what happens if something becomes dated in your business card book? Is it difficult to go back and
update?
Yeah, update, print new copies.
I don't think so. First of all, there's a lot of things in sales that haven't changed since the late 1800s.
Right.
It's basic people skills, and if you look at one of the most famous books ever written by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Sure, still popular today.
People are still picking up that book. People are still taking that course. There's a lot of things in there that won't change. The stories may need to change, but I think that as years go by, I think there'll be an episode 1, an episode 2, an episode 3. Mm-hmm. Again, this is our way. We almost see this as a ministry to help entrepreneurs win.
And that's a great question. I think in certain industries, if you can write it generically enough, they don't have to give details that would date it for what the era is. In the real estate, now, if you're talking about stuff and you're not even talking about digital content, yeah, that's going to be really dated, right? But there's certain industries, and I think sales is one of those, is that you can write it generically enough that it would be a timeless piece of work, for sure.
That's very interesting.
Right.
You said something interesting about hiring a publicist for a couple hours a month. Tell tell us about that process, because I think sometimes that can be overwhelming. People could be afraid to hire someone thinking it's going to cost too much money.
Well, sure. I mean, again, there's virtual assistants out there that you can get for a couple dollars an hour. It just depends on what you're going to get. And those are readily available. I've used them in other businesses.
Okay.
But the publicist, we came across, I've known him for some time because he's a fellow podcaster as well. And I just got to know some of the other work that he's done. I think if you were to just go online and try to find a publicist to promote your stuff, that could be a little scary. And yeah, some of those guys just want to flat out rip out your eyeballs.
And your wallet.
Yeah.
And they will, and they won't apologize either. And I think what you need to do is really kind of get a feel for who they are, what they do, and you have to have a very clear idea and expectation of what you want your publicist to do and what you want them to execute on. You got to have some measurables to say what's happening, and it could be a little difficult when you're talking about posting and traction and that kind of thing. But we've seen an uptick in some of our podcast downloads since he's taken over our posting. He writes very good copy, and he's very detail oriented. As a matter of fact, he picked up a couple of our typos after our first run of our first book that was done by our graphic guy that we didn't pick up.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
Good.
I think if you kind of listen to the string of how we got our publicist and how did we get our publisher and how did we get all of these folks that have kind of surrounded us and lifted us up to help us accomplish the goal of writing the book, it was all referrals.
Sure.
So, we're constantly out with other entrepreneurs at events, just chit-chatting and getting to know each other, but we're constantly asking, hey, do you know anybody that does X, Y, Z? And, when you pour that back into other entrepreneurs, it's just awesome. Like, it's just a great way you're helping other people, they're helping you. Like, referrals rock.
Right. Rick, you had talked about setting like specific goals for the publicist. Would you mind sharing with our audience like what your specific goals were, or like an example of what somebody can, to get someone thinking about what I should talk to with a publicist?
Yeah, sure. Like, there's a couple different markets. We wrote this book. It's kind of like we look at it as like a sales 101 for that entrepreneur that really has never had any formal sales training. Okay. Mm-hmm. The professional sales guy who's been through a lot of different programs and stuff, I've read that, I've seen that. But this was written really purely for the entrepreneur that has decided to go out on his own with a business or a company or a product or a service, but just cannot get deals closed because they don't know how to sell, right? So with that, we feel that this book is beautiful for direct marketing education. Like, there's a lot of multi-level marketing companies that offer, educational resources to their associates. And we tasked our publicist to get us into a couple of those companies this year.
Well, that's a great idea, because generally those are people who probably don't have a lot of experience with sales, a multi-level marketing person.
Right. So, the goals, the goals that we set them were, was with regard around social media. We needed to get into all the platforms, and we wanted to make sure that we were posting not just in the Facebook, but also across other boards with LinkedIn and Pinterest,
Instagram, YouTube.
Right. Mm-hmm. And getting us engagements, and he's actively out there talking to people about getting future engagements. We meet quarterly with him, and we kind of do a review of what we have, and then kind of make an adjustment. And we kind of like do this. It's called a PDCA, and it's a plan, do, check, and adjust. So we plan something, we do it, we check it, and then we adjust it.
Oh, great idea.
Well,
thank you for bringing that up, because it is nice. I think, once again, people can be, this is for like first-time authors, and I think it can be overwhelming, the whole process. So now, and it's good advice to go to somebody with something in mind, instead of just saying, okay, whatever you say. You're telling the people, have some knowledge and know what you want.
Have a target to aim for.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Thank you.
For the people out there thinking about writing that book, it's here's what has made it easier for us to do it, is that we did attend a seminar And it was a gentleman that was very successful publisher who has published many, many different books. And his whole concept was about writing a book that wraps around your business, not to be a best-selling author. And he gave us a tremendous amount of content in that seminar. Now, he was selling it for a really big dollar amount, his whole system, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I was like, there is no way I'm going to stroke a check that big. I go, but I could do it about a tenth of what he said. And he gave us enough content, and I had a book done 2 months later.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's really set us free. That's what set us free.
Yeah. So what social media have you found works the best for you?
Well, believe it or not, good old Facebook is still number one. And based on experts in the social media field, it sounds like it's going to be there at least for another year. Instagram and Twitter are probably neck and neck with number two.
Okay.
But I think that's because we haven't done a whole lot of YouTube videos. If we were doing a lot more on YouTube, I think Facebook and YouTube would probably go hand in hand.
Oh, okay. All right.
Really?
It seems like a lot of the people we do speak to, Facebook seems to be the best marketing tool.
We agree.
So I think it's for the age group that we're all aiming for, somewhere between 35 and 55 or whatever, right? I mean, it's...
Yep, that's fair.
Right, that's what people use in that age group is Facebook. For our listeners, how would be the best way to find your book, Nail the Sale?
The best thing is to go to Amazon.com, and if you'll Google one of our first names and our last name, the book will pop right up.
Oh, okay. Great. And then we can put it in our show notes, too.
Yeah, so it's available in Kindle, or you can do print on demand.
Oh, okay. Great. And then what is your advice for first-time authors?
It's all about action. Just do it. Quit overthinking it. It's not going to be perfect. Don't worry about perfection. It just doesn't happen. just do your best and put it out there and be fearless. Don't worry about what anybody has to say about your content. Don't worry about it. Go out and do it, and you will be so proud that you did it. You're going to write another one right behind it.
Well, that sounds really inspiring, but it is hard. I like how, but you're probably your salesmanship goes with that. Like you can do that. But for a lot of people, I think it is hard. They do worry. Oh, so it's good advice. So thank you for saying that, because I do think there's a lot of people, or we have spoken to people, not on the podcast, who want to write a book, but they're too afraid of what people are going to think of them. Oh, you're not,
right.
You don't know enough to write that, or who are you to write that, or
it's fear,
right.
and it's not even a real fear. It's a fear that they're making up that's holding them back. Rick has sat down with several people to help them get started. And I think the biggest thing that he's done thus far to get guys writing is, hey, I want you to write 3 chapters this week. Why don't you get an outline done for the entire book today?
So Rick's motivating people. Great.
Wow.
Exactly. So it's just, if you set the book up in bite-sized chunks that is a little outside your comfort zone, but not so much that fear drips back in and shuts you down,
okay,
you're going to get it done.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
That's wonderful. Thank you for motivating people.
Those are great goals because, set the outline today. Instead of not by Friday or a week from today, just do it today. And you're like, oh my gosh, I guess I'm not going to watch TV. I'm going to do that outline, right?
Right. What's an outline? An hour? Maybe
right,
a half
yeah,
an hour? Like,
exactly.
Come on.
And then that's the first step because there you're on your way.
And then you can say, hey, I did do it. I'm on my way.
That is
You'd
great.
be surprised. Yeah, you'd be surprised when people just write out an outline. They write a chapter and they think it's easier than they think.
Right.
Yeah. What did you say in the beginning of the podcast? Something about unleash your creativity?
Yeah, it's just a way to free flow what's in your heart and in your mind onto a piece of paper.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Creativity is if you don't use it, it goes dormant.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have a saying about critics, they never erected a statue for one.
That's funny. True. Well, thank you, Nancy and Rick, for joining us today. You've been very motivational and positive force for our audience. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And if you're an aspiring author, get it done.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast.
And if you get a chance, stop over at Apple Podcasts and leave us a ratings or review.
This will make it easier for other people to find our podcast.
And if you have any questions or suggestions on who we can interview on our next podcast, please drop us a line. Our email can be found on theauthorInsideYou.com.
Or you can find us on Facebook also.
Until next time.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.